I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting. For formality, I would like to call this special city council meeting to order. And I will turn everything over to Councilmember Cook.
Hi. You notice the interesting platform. Thank you everybody to the third session of our Citizens Academy. As we said, we're going to try to move you around so you get a better feel for what the city's all about. Our first session, let's see, I think there's a couple new people here that didn't make the first one. You may want to stand up, introduce yourself, and tell us where you live.
My name is Serge Dad. I live at 1010 Lancey Street in Temple City.
And I'm Blake Crystal. Same address.
They were on vacation in Lebanon?
Yeah, we just came back from
First
Lebanon
session.
for 2.5 weeks. We celebrated our 1-year anniversary, and I got to meet my nephew. So,
Okay, anybody else new here? Everybody's been good? Okay. Okay, the first session, if you remember, the first session was basically, Brian Hayworth ran it, Jose Polito, the city manager. We talked about city government and how the city's structured and all that good stuff. The second session was with Tracy Haas, who is our Community Administrative Services Director. Talked about, I think the topic was words to Benjamins, Benjamins being Benjamin Franklin on the $100 bill or whatever it was. And talked about, where the money comes and where it goes. So this one, obviously, just by the setting here, is we're getting a little closer to, what do we really do? And what takes place. So it's neighborhood services. There's going to be two presenters tonight. Kathy Burrows, who's the Parks and Recreation Director, longtime employee of the city, and Robert Sahagan, this gentleman back here, who's the Community Preservation Supervisor. And with that, I'll turn it over to whoever's going to run it.
I also want to introduce Steve Masura as the Community Development Director, and is actually Robert's supervisor. On behalf of the staff, first of all, I want to welcome you. A little different surroundings. I know the chairs aren't real comfortable, but you're not going to be in a long time. We're actually going to get you out in the field as well. Today's topic is about neighborhoods, and obviously it's probably one of the areas that's most near and dear to most of our hearts. If you live in Temple City, your home, your property is very important, as it is throughout the entire city. So we're going to be talking about your neighborhoods, how they maintain, who maintains them, what we're looking for, and encompass all sorts of things.
And again, I'm Steve Masura, Community Development Director. Again, I was here on the first session, so you briefly met me, but I didn't get to speak. But I oversee public safety, public works, planning, and building and housing and community preservation. And tonight, Robert Sahagan, our Community Preservation Supervisor, will be giving a presentation. So you'll get to hear about all the things that happen down on the streets and the neighborhoods and around your houses. And then our next session, we'll be talking a little more about citywide overall planning. How do we plan for the long-term future for the city? So I'll be giving that presentation to you guys next time. So I think we're going to learn a lot about what's going on in the city tonight. So welcome and look forward to it. If I can do a quick announcement while you guys are captive audience right now before you go out and walk the streets. Our energy efficiency fair is going to be next Wednesday, right before the concert from 5 to 7. If you guys could come or tell your neighbors and pass out flyers to everybody, I'd appreciate it. We're going to have lots of giveaways and vendors there to talk about how you can do energy efficiency upgrades to your home, and things like that, and what's in store for the city, as the city's going to be doing some energy efficiency planning and so forth as part of this as well. Thank you.
It's at the park before the concert?
Yes, it's at the park right before the concert.
Thank you.
Okay, on your handout is our PowerPoint. Notice we kind of do a little acronym. It's supposed to stand for neighborhoods. So we're going to start off with, I'm going to turn it over to Robert. Neat neighborhoods.
Thank you. Again, my name is Robert Sahagan. I'm in charge of community preservation and maintenance tasks with making sure that everyone in the city abides by the municipal code. And within that municipal code is everything from business license to trees to streets. It encompasses about close to 800 pages and about 12,000 provisions. Within that entire municipal code is really the foundation of how a city's supposed to run. So we're going to start off with the neat neighborhoods and start talking about with trash collection. Why trash service? We get a question on this all the time. Unlike most other cities where all the utilities are paid on one bill, the city of Temple City pays their trash service directly to the trash collector. Now, people say that we have this question come up to us all the time: why do I need trash service? Yeah, really. I have a business that I take my trash to. I don't need your trash service. I can take my trash somewhere else. There are several reasons for having trash service. First of all, it's a public safety issue. Second of all, it's dictated by the code, just like everything else. Why our trash service is unique? We have a franchise agreement with Athens Services that stipulates that you have to use Athens for everything. So if you have construction going on in your home and you want to rent a happy bin to put in your front yard so you can dispose of trash, our collection agreement doesn't allow you to do that. You have to use Athens. The type of contract that we have with Athens is a 30-year contract that renews every 30 years. So you get the gist of that contract. Are there any changes in store with regard to trash? We just, at the last council meeting, we had
the cost of living increase, our cost basically increase was approved, which they do every year as fees go up and their dumping fees and the cost of living.
So
there's like a 1.5%.
1.5% increase in your trash fees went up. Street sweeping. Right now, currently, the entire city gets swept once every 2 weeks. And that is going to change. The way it's going to change is now, and the way it runs right now is you can park your vehicle right in front, and the street sweeping will go right around you. The way it's going to change is, beginning in January of 2013, every street will be swept once a week, and signs will be posted throughout the city letting you know that you can't park on that street during a certain day for a 2 to 3 hour period. There will be a fee for that service, and it's going to work out to about $1 for residential and about $1.30 for commercial. That right now, when the sweeper goes to clean the streets, he can't collect a lot of the trash that's there, and all those pollutants wind up in the ocean. The curbs are not, the gutterways aren't clean, and it just doesn't give an overall good representation of what Temple City is all about. When you see dirt and leaves in the gutterways, so beginning January 1st, you'll see the signs start to go up in about September. Then there will be an extensive outreach message to residents letting them know that it's coming. And the signs will be all done by January 1st, and then you'll have a 30-day. We're going to have a 30-day period where we're not going to cite, and all you're going to do is get warnings. After that, if you're parked out in front on sweeper day, it's a $55 ticket. Yes, sir.
If I could, just a little background on what you just said. The Federal Clean Water Act, which was passed a decade or two ago, basically mandates the quality that the receiving bodies of the water need to be, how clean they need to be. And the Regional Water Quality Control Board here in California basically sets some rules. If you ever hear us roll out the acronym TMDL, which is Total Maximum Daily Load, there's some requirements of what it is. The way it is set up now is that if there's pollution that exceeds that, the contributor, they can fine us, I think it's about $10,000 a day. So our motivation is you clean the streets well enough, you take care of a large percentage of the pollutions that we go through. So our alternative is to not do it and end up in a big legal fight, probably with some significant fines against us. We're choosing not to do that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we're moving quickly through this because we're all just sitting here to get questions. So, you have a question?
Oh, yes, sir.
Regarding the fee, is that like a monthly fee, yearly fee, weekly? I mean,
It'll be a monthly fee and it'll be incurred on your trash bill. So I think you're charged bi-monthly. So it works out to about $1, a little bit less, $1 a month, which would be an additional $2 on your bill. Yes, sir.
When they do the street sweeping, and it happens to rain the day of the week that the day they're going to do it on the street, what's the policy? Do they skip the week, or they come back the next day, or whenever the rain stops?
Great question. If it rains, then the rain just acted as a street sweeper most of the time.
Not all the time. Very high distance there.
And a lot, Ms. Chavez just was right now that she said a lot of times it just sits there, and the reason it sits there is because we don't sweep once a week, and we sweep around cars, and so it accumulates. So after continuous sweeping of once a week, you won't have those clumps that always seem to cause the street or the gutterway to stop up. But no, it would not carry on to another day. If you're scheduled to be swept every Tuesday between 9 and noon, and it rains on Tuesday between 9 and noon, you'll get swept again next Tuesday between 9 and noon. Now, Kathy.
Alrighty, now we're going to talk a little bit about our urban forest. You ever heard that term before, urban forest? What the heck does it mean? Well, if you break it down, urban is obviously a city and forest is a forest. So basically, it's our forest in our little city. Before I go on, I want to introduce two of our three city tree crew. We have Rob Cruz, who's our city arborist and the lead tree trimmer. And in the back is Tom Park, who are a tree trimmer. They've both been with the city for many years. Rob, probably longer than me, in the city. But, they do a great job out there. We have a third tree crew member, Paige Spellron, who's on vacation this week. Between the three of them, they do a lot of the emergency and the in-house stuff. We also contract with West Coast Arborists, a large company that provides our grid pruning and a lot of the mass quantity type of services. So between the two of them, they help us maintain our urban forest of over 5,500 trees. The city trees, the trees that the city is responsible for are in the parks, along the parkways, or along the public right-of-way. The questions that we're asked most often in regards to the trees is, why do we have trees? What are the benefits? Is it a city tree or is it my tree? Whose responsibility is it? Who maintains the city trees? And what if I want or don't want a city tree? So we're going to talk about those a little bit. First reason, obviously, how many of you have a tree in your front yard? City tree or otherwise? Almost everybody. There are, and I give you a handout, a couple handouts, one of which has basic information, and it's interesting because it's pre-storm and post-storm, but it has the information there. There are a lot of vacant sites that we have in the city, not a lot, a good number, and there's a couple of reasons why they're vacant. Either they're not viable, meaning we can't put a tree there because there's power lines right there, or the person doesn't want it, or what are the other main reasons, Rob, we don't want to tree somewhere?
Maybe other trees that would affect it, or maybe water meters, gas meters, front door, moving away from that. Those are the main.
Okay. So, but for the most part, we've got, as I mentioned, almost 5,600 trees that we're responsible for. We lost the windstorm back in November. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I remember it very clearly. We lost about 500 trees, 10% of our tree inventory. And if you look on the information we gave you, probably just over half of those, or just under half of those, they're actually gone already. They were either uprooted or destroyed so bad that they had to be immediately removed. There are another 250 to 300 that can't be saved. They're structurally unsound. They're okay now. They're not going to fall down on the property, but they're going to die soon, so we need to remove those. That's the next phase of the storm cleanup. So the benefits to why do we have trees? Obviously, most of them are beautiful. A lot of people would disagree. If you have liquid ambers like on my street, Street sweeper hates us, especially in the fall. You've got beautiful orange and yellow leaves, but they're all over the street. The sweeper has to stop and dump every couple houses, but they're beautiful trees. Some people like them, some don't. But the aesthetics is the main one. They also improve your property values. They help with the environment. Remember your biology, the oxidation and all this. Those are the main benefits. Is it a city tree or is it my tree? Generally, this is not a hard, fast number, but generally, if it's within 12 feet of the curb line, it's a city tree. There are some right-of-ways that are as small as...
We have some that are 3 feet, up to about 15 feet, but 12 feet is pretty general.
So it was anywhere from 3 feet to 15 feet, but generally, if it's within 12 feet, it's a city tree. So if it's a city tree, what does that mean? It means the city has the responsibility, the city owns it, the city is to maintain it. We trim it. We are currently on a 4-year trim cycle, which means theoretically, and hopefully in practice, every tree in the city is trimmed at least once every 4 years. We've gone back and forth between 4 years, 7 years, but 4 years is probably a good time. There are some trees, obviously, that can be trimmed more often, and they are on a separate cycle. Fallen trees are one of them. But generally, we're on a 4-year trim cycle, and I've given you the map, this year's map, that shows every area in the city on what year it is scheduled to be trimmed. So you can look at your area and say, okay, my trees are scheduled to be trimmed this year, next year, following year, and that is continually updated. Emergency services are performed by our staff and other things that come up throughout the day. If we only had a contract with West Coast Arborists on November 30th, December 1st, there wouldn't have been anybody out there in the middle of the night. Rob, Tom, Jesus, and a lot of others that are here today were out within the city in their vehicles at 10 o'clock at night, starting to pick up branches before it got really crazy. And so when we have a limb down, if you're on the street and you've got a big tree in your house, your neighbor's house, the limb comes down in the middle of the night, don't call Rob and his cell phone, you call the sheriff's department, and they will get a hold of you. There's just guys like that in the middle of the night all the time. Pick up trees that are blocking traffic. So that's one of the benefits of having our own in-house crew. Another question we get is either somebody wants a tree or doesn't want a tree. Let's talk first about if you want a tree, or what are the requirements if you have a tree. As I mentioned, we do the maintenance on it. We'll trim it, we'll plant it, we'll remove it if we have to, but we also need community help. If it's in your front yard, we need you to water it. We need you to make sure there's room around it for it to grow. Oftentimes what we're finding is there's a tree in the front yard, they'll tear down the house, build a new house, and then put in a fence or a brick wall right up against the tree. It doesn't have any room to grow. What makes it even worse then is when we need to get in and prune it or root prune it, we can't get to the tree because the wall, the concrete's been built around it. So it's really important that our residents also help us out by, watering the tree. They need water to grow, and weeding around it, give it a little room to grow. Don't staple and stick things in your tree. A lot of people have swings in their trees. Okay, that's okay, but just be careful what you do with it. You can't take it out for yourself. You shouldn't be out there cutting the branches off and chopping your tree down because it's not your tree, it's a city tree. Right now, the main reasons why I say we'll move a tree, there's really only 3 of them. Either it's dead, it's diseased, or it's causing property damage, like hardscape or landscape damage. Rob and West Coast Arborists, usually it's Rob as the city arborist, make the determination as to whether it's dead or diseased. Oftentimes, we'll get people that call and say, I don't want a tree because there's leaves on it. Well, yeah, and the leaves are going to fall on my yard and I have to pick them up. Okay, I understand it's messy, but this is another reason we're going to remove it. Or the parrots, the parrots gathering my tree and I want the tree gone so they don't gather there. So those are the main reasons. Every once in a while, we will remove a tree for health reasons. Someone is allergic to the type of tree, and so that is the reason why we would remove it. So the request for tree removals must meet specific criteria. Wrapping it up a little bit, it's not on here, but where are we going from here? We are looking at revising our tree ordinance. Right now, it's very vague in the municipal code. We want to toughen it up a little bit, and very likely we will be recommending to the city council establishment of a tree commission or tree committee that will assist us in you know, whether trees need to be removed or not, appeals of different things, as well as, and one of the things I brought with me, I don't have copies for everyone, but you're welcome to look at it, is our tree inventory and our tree master planning list that determines what trees are to be planted where and what not. We want to get that updated, and having a tree commission would help us with that task as well. Right now, there is a list that says, here's the tree that goes in this block. We don't really have too many options. If you don't like that tree, or you know, I'd rather have this one, you know, we're trying to keep within that so we have consistent trees in a block. But we want to work on that and maybe have one or two options, so people aren't stuck with the same tree. As long as, as Rob said, it fits in the place that we're looking for. Just to wrap it up. Yes?
I just wondered, what was the reason for taking out the trees on Longman?
Right, this past week?
Yeah, a couple days ago.
The reason we took
right
out-
in front of the school.
The reason we took those out is because they were raising the sidewalk, and we had several people that tripped on the sidewalks, and because those trees, it wasn't going to get any better than that. There's sometimes where we can prune them or root prune them, but those ones, it was going to be a continual problem. And I think I'm correct, Rob, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was the reason why those were removed.
Every year the root system grows, and the trunk grows, literally both wings come in. So as it grows, it's going to keep lifting it up. We can keep replacing the sidewalk, but it's very expensive. So it's probably better to get the tree down and start over. We are going to replant that area.
Those trees are old. Those are like 60 years old.
I'm not sure
Are those liquid apples?
that.
Are those liquid apples you took out? Or-
Yeah, they were all liquid. It was all set.
The other thing that we're doing, and
I'm sorry.
before I forget,
That's right.
haven't read the magazine yet. There's a great article in here about our urban forest. Rob's quoted in here, yours truly a couple of times. Wonderful article, I encourage you to read it. It talks a lot about this. Liquid amber is the most, by far, the species of tree that we have the most of in the city, but they're also the ones that we're really planting. The reason for that is well, there's a couple of reasons. One, there's an extensive root system that tends to remove sidewalks, but they also have branches that will break, in particular in the summer months. And they're huge trees. And I believe, and I'm not sure, but I believe the reason they were planted way back when the city incorporated, we were part of the county, they grow quickly and they're good shade trees. And so they were all over the community. Now, when we take liquid ambers out, we replace them with a different tree that is much more suitable for the city. So please, for more information, read this. Any other questions before I turn it back over? Yes.
Cutting those older and bigger root trees, because I work at downtown, and City of Los Angeles had a problem. I think it was a couple of years ago, they want to remove all the ficus trees. Ficus has been there for years and years, provide great shade. You know, I was telling the city the other day, the reason I moved to Temple City was because of line of trees, shading trees and so on, especially around Broadway area.
Yes.
I understand those roots will lift up, cement breaks. And what city does, after a lot of people petition for keeping those shady trees, is periodically they replace those cement plates.
Yes. And you know what, and you're right, and there's, one of the things I forgot to mention, you mentioned longitudinous that we have ficus all along. Rosewood Boulevard, when it's going to be done, there will be hundreds, 200, 500. 500 additional trees that will be going down Rosewood Boulevard, so our forest is going to grow even more. But you're right, there are some beautiful, very mature trees in Temple City. Broadway, again, as I know Rob has said to me, it's one of my favorite streets because the canopy is just gorgeous. You're going under basically shade trees. But again, there comes a point where, I guess what our philosophy is we know that some of these trees aren't going to last forever, and what we would rather do is when we have to take them out, and we try not to take out the trees unless we need to, but when we take them out, we want to start putting new ones in, so down the road, 10, 20 years from now, we'll have new larger trees and new larger trees. And so if we continue to take out and replace our stock, then for every generation, we'll have new trees. What we never want to do is take out all the trees in one block or an area because they're all too big or too old, because then that block doesn't have anything. So when we need to take them out, we try and do them, one at a time. Up on Longdon was a different situation, but we try not to do that too long.
When we other trees, do we consider the habitat? Like we have so many parrots in Temple City. So are those the parrots loving trees we replant, or what we do? Or parrots will go away? Parrots.
Well, we don't really replant for the parrots, but they want several different trees. The carrotwoods cause a lot of hardscape damage, but so we don't really plant those, but that is one of their favorite trees. But there were on Kaufman, quite a few of the carrotwoods were devastated by the winds. But there are other trees. They do like the sycamore trees, some liquid ambers. So there's a lot of trees that they like, and I don't really see them leaving the area because there are a lot of fruit trees in the area, pecan trees, walnut trees like on Wedgwood, and they can adapt to those other trees. But we don't really we try to put the right tree in the right spot so we have the best, healthiest, safest product. Really, is our goal.
The city should have more shade trees throughout the city, especially the residential neighborhood. We tend to focus on the business section, so we enhance the look. I think it's the other reason is that's the plus side. We have more shade trees, so people will use AC less often with the same energy there. I think in that you can negotiate with the SCE to get funding for that because it helps them too. So instead of we spend our money for city street. So I think it's very active to design beautification is energy.
Absolutely, and that is one of the biggest benefits. And I would say at my street I had huge liquid amber. It was eventually had to be taken out. And although I love the tree, I hated the tree because it was a mess. But you don't realize until that huge tree is gone how much shade it provides to your home, and therefore, if your home is shaded, especially in the afternoons, you don't need to run the air conditioning. So yes, absolutely, there is a huge benefit. And the other thing we always try and do when we have to take a tree out, we always ask if it's a viable location. We always ask the resident if they want us to plant another tree. Most of the time, the residents will say yes, and so we put them in. If the resident doesn't want a tree, we're probably not going to put it in because we want to make sure they're going to take care of it. And if they don't want a tree, they're not going to take care of it. Yes.
CD tried to bring a tree on the street. Some houses no sidewalk.
Right.
How do we from the code?
It doesn't matter if there's a sidewalk or not. If it's in the public right of way, whether there's a sidewalk or not, we can put the tree in. There are some areas that do not have sidewalks, so we're going to get into that in a second here.
And also the other question, we've opened the tree, how to rule out the location of the tree?
Yes, Rob does that. We're going to put the tree in, we'll talk to the property owner and make sure it's in a spot where it's where they want it. Exactly. So, yes.
If we're going to do the resident, make sure we put it in a spot that's good for everyone, because they have to deal with the tree every day. So we want to make sure that they're happy with what they get and where it's at. So that's really we can try to do that.
I have a tree question. Don't go away.
Thank you.
One second, we'll leave a little bit.
Oh, that's good.
That's going to be a hard topic to follow. Before I get started, I'd like for everybody to meet our community preservation officer. That's Preservation Officer Fittest, and that's Senior Preservation Officer Tran, and over yonder is our community preservation intern. And I'll explain more about what he does, and that's Andrew Coyne. So, phase. I don't know if any of you have gotten a little tag like this on your front door. There you go. It's not a citation. What we're trying to do with code enforcement is, before I get into phase, what we're trying to do with code enforcement is code enforcement. We moved it away. It's now community preservation. Code enforcement implies that we're there to enforce the code. What we're really there to do is we're there to preserve the community. And the way we do that is by having people voluntarily the key word being voluntarily, comply with the provisions in the code to make sure that they maintain their property. That's a huge difference or a huge shift from how we used to do things in Temple City. We would get a citation for only 12 things, and then if you didn't pay it, then you would go to the city prosecutor. We don't want to do that. What we'd like to do is we'd like to work with the residents to inform you what the provisions are in the code and why it is that they're there. The last thing that we want to do is leave one of these little tags on your door, have you call us, and then us tell you, well, you need to clean it up because it's in the code. That doesn't serve you and it doesn't serve us. We're going to explain to you what the benefits are of correcting that violation. Phase works, the officers, the way phase works is we've identified sections of the city, and there are three sections of the city. Each officer has one section. This is where we've gotten up until May of this year, and as you can see, we're working our way in on the east side, here on the south side, and in the yellow we're kind of in between. The way it works is the officers usually get anywhere between 75 and 100 parcels. Contained within those 75 to 100 parcels are in between 85 and maybe 115 housing units. One thing that's happened over time in Temple City as Temple City has grown is more units have been added, and those units haven't been properly reported to the city, which in turn the county hasn't counted. Mr. Nimri smiles at that, yes. So what the officers do, not only when they go out there, they look at every property. They stand at the curb and look at every property. They look at their phase tag, and on that phase tag, I'm going to get into the phase tag. You can see it's overgrown vegetation, dead trees, inoperable vehicles, household items, clotheslines, trash cans, trash and debris, and inadequate landscape. These are the easiest violations to clean that have the most return, the most bang for your buck, so to speak, in order to make that neighborhood look great. If you can imagine, if you turn the corner on a street and you see green parkway, you don't see any inoperable vehicles, you see maintained grass, and you see a property that's painted well, you just improve that property, that street, or that neighborhood tenfold, and it's taken nothing except elbow grease. So once the officers come by, they put this on your property, you typically have about 14 days to clear up what's on their hand or make calls to them and ask for an extension. But in reality, it's not an extension. You're not asking for anything because it's a courtesy notice. It's not a citation. We go back out there typically about 21 days later, go back there about 21 days later, and we reassess your property based on the violations that we ask you to voluntarily clean up. If you don't clean up those violations at that point, then we issue you a code compliance notice. On that code compliance notice, it's just simply please clean it up, and you typically have anywhere between 14 and 30 days. State law says that we have to give you reasonable time. That reasonable time, depending if we want you to re-roof your house, that reasonable time is not going to be 7 days. We understand that. If that doesn't happen at that point, then you get a citation. And at this last meeting, our administrative citation ordinance was introduced. Second reading will be at the next one. And what that entails pretty much is that every violation of the code, for a first offense, after you get a notice of violation, is 100 for the first offense, 200 for the second, 500 for the third within 1 year.
Well, you want to get the success rate so far?
Yes, thank you. Thus far, through phase, we're at about an 83% success rate with voluntary compliance on the first time around. There's a huge pride of ownership in the city. I came from a city where if I tried this and I was at about 40%. And it's just the pride of ownership. One thing that I have noticed in Temple City is we have a lot of tenants. Right? They're not it's not owner occupied. But the great thing about it is even the owners who are not occupying their homes, they live here at some point and they do have great pride of still owning that property. So we're having great success with bays. As I mentioned before, those are the most easiest violations to clean that have the most bang for your buck. Do I have any questions on bays or on community preservation so far? Wow, great. Yes, sir. We're going to skip the H, and we're going to go into the D to the dogs and cats. We're going to talk about Title 10 regulations, which it was introduced, and the way most codes are passed the way most codes are passed is they have a first reading and then an introduction. They have an introduction, first reading, and then a second reading. The city read for the first time Title 10 animals. And the Title 10 regulations, the reason we're going to Title 10 is our current code with regards to animals is, like I said, it's severely deficient with regards to vicious animals, especially with vicious animals and pets that like bees. We have a large contingent of we have a lot of people in the city who they like bees. For the honey. And it's not identified in our zoning code. So what Title 10 aims to do is not assert our zoning code, but strengthen our code with regards to animals, specifically vicious dogs. At this point, if there's a dog that chases you down the street and by any chance happens to bite you, the city does not have an authority to quarantine that animal. We just don't. The owner can go to wherever it is, and the owner can pick it up as long as it has all the shots and it's registered. But we'll have an extensive staff report. Just go to make reference back to the last meeting. There was no extensive staff report. Staff will be submitting an extensive staff report at the second reading. We'll be able to receive valuable public input with regard to Title 10.
When does Title 10 take effect?
It should. What does it require and when does it take effect? It would take effect if at the next meeting it is approved, it would take effect on July 17th. The new regulations of Title 10 would require spaying and neutering of all animals, of all dogs in the city. And there were some provisions in there, unless you're a breeder and so on. And it would also require microchipping of all dogs in the city. Yes?
I don't mean to jump the gun,
No,
but you guys do a fabulous job of the rabies clinic at the park. Do you think you'll be adding the service of microchipping because it's not going to be a requirement?
We would be adding one a month for the first 6 months.
Oh, awesome, thank you.
What about cats?
Cats, and again, it's still up for public discussion, so you're more than welcome to come down. In the proposed ordinance, cats would need to be registered. Yes, sir.
What are the Title 10 regulations?
We have our own animal control ordinance. Title 10 is what the county uses as animal control ordinance. And Title 10 is recognized throughout the country as probably the most comprehensive animal control ordinance throughout the country.
Do you have copies of that, or can
We sure do. It's actually on file with the city clerk as specified at the first reading. So even if you come down and see us, we'd be more than glad to give you a copy of that the entire Title 10. Streets. Oh, any questions with regards to the dogs and cats? I gotta hurry up because I gotta get you on the daylight. Yes, sir.
On the regulation 10, is the city is going to make exceptions to the 10 because of tenants or a larger number of animals per se? Because it allows more.
That regulation, the amount of animals that are regulated will not change.
Okay, it'll be the same.
It'll be the same, sir.
Another question, I'm sorry. Is there a leash law? Like if you see someone walking the dogs, let's say without a leash, can you report it?
Excellent question. Our leash law right now only applies to public places. It doesn't apply to sidewalks. It doesn't apply to local right.
Sidewalks are considered public place?
No, public facilities like parks, city hall, it does not apply to open air spaces. So, and Title 10 will address it. Streets and sidewalks, When do you know when to fix the streets? There are two ways of fixing the street. You can slurry seal it, which is a fancy way of saying I'm going to paint the street, or you can put a new street down. What streets are planned for fixing? The city has a pavement management index right now, and that pavement management index will be updated here in the next about 2 months, and that designates what streets are due next for either slurry seal or cap. Why don't we have sidewalks citywide? It's just the way Temple City is. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I think over time, when we were first incorporated by the county, we didn't have the sidewalks. We tried to put in some sidewalks in some areas, and now you just have some areas where residents have actually built on that public right of way up to the gutter. And are there sidewalk requirements? There are. You have ADA requirements that have to be adhered to. And if you've driven around the city, you'll see that there are ADA ramps. We're actually going for an extensive ADA ramp installation this upcoming year that was just approved at the last meeting, where we will about 120 or 60 wheelchair ramps will be installed. You want to add something, sir?
What is ADA?
American with Disabilities Act. Sorry about that.
Is the penalty for encroachment, as just mentioned, that if somebody builds to the edge of the curb, for example?
They can't do that, right? They would contact community preservation, and we would work with the resident to make sure that they didn't build into the public right of way. But if you've driven the streets, it's almost like a legacy issue. People have encroached unknowingly all the way to the public right of way with pavers, and it's going to be a task. We'll handle it property by property as the city feels the need.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have gone to some different cities, and there they have like a ramp for the wheelchair. One side of the street, other side they don't do it. Temple City has both the sides. Can we reduce the half expense by doing one side only? No. Because other cities have that.
Pardon me?
I went to San Jose and they have only one side. Streets have the ramp for the wheelchair.
Only one side has the American with Disabilities
One side
ramp?
of the street, yeah.
Right now we're about 130 areas that have identified that need, and we're going to handle 60 of them this year. And then over our 2-year work plan, we'll address the rest of them to install American with Disabilities Act ramps, ADA ramps. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
If your block, if you get like 80 or 90% of the people say, I want a sidewalk and I'm willing to pay for it, can they petition the city to handle it?
We don't currently have a formal process to do that, but they could.
They could informally do it?
Well, no, not informally.
But I might add that if we do a tree commission, that might be a part of their purview, is when a sidewalk should go in versus street trees and things like that. What the standards might be for sidewalks. So that's something to think about. But also, as the city develops its capital improvement plan, they're going to be looking closer at where sidewalks need to go in and how we get the funding to do so. Yes.
They also want to mention the safe routes to school issue.
Yes. The city does continually apply for grants, and one that we have an application up now for is a Safe Routes to School grant, which does actually, in that proposal, has some sidewalks, but more around some of the schools, existing schools, where sidewalks are needed to make connections to actually for children to get to school, to make it safer. Those grants are primarily for improving safety for Safe Routes to School hours.
Thank you.
Now, sorry about that. To move along, we'll move on to signs and lighting. You're going to start to see new traffic signage throughout the city, as approved in the other day's budget. What you'll do is you'll start to see in the residential areas, and that's new street signs and traffic signs. And before I get to that, I'd like to introduce the two maintenance gentlemen that are responsible for that. And that's Isidro Martinez there, and that's Eddie Canizales. And those are both the the facilities and street gentlemen that handle this. The signage reflects the new reflective. The higher reflectivity standards by the federal government. The best way I can explain it is, once you drive down Baldwin and you hit Arcadia, their signs up top are no longer lit, but you can see them just as good as you can see them here on Las Tunas. And that's because they're high reflective. And those signs, you'll see those signs starting to get installed throughout this year, along with the 1,600 signs that will also go up for no parking for street sweeping. Yes, sir?
Now, I noticed that's been for long. There are some signs have been missing. I don't know why they replaced it. For example,
Yeah, great question.
Temple City Boulevard and
Encinitas,
that
Sun
one
Road.
missing for a long time, 7 months.
Right. They've been missing since the windstorms. What happens is we want to replace them, but the county can't replace them anymore because they don't make them. But we are going to try to order some special order fiberglass ones in the interim before we get the high reflective signs up there. So you'll see them here in the next month or so. We are going to replace them with something because we understand that even coming down to Encinita, right, you almost miss Encinita because it's gone. So we are going to replace those. Streetlights, the city does not maintain the streetlights. I'd like to say about 80% of the streetlights are maintained by Edison, the other 20 by the county. The city is doing a comprehensive assessment to identify which ones belong to Edison and which ones belong to the county, because, well, to be quite honest, we don't know. And neither does Edison and neither does the county. So what we're doing now is we're identifying them and we're tremble packing. For those of you that know GIS, each light is being tremble packed and overlaid over maps, so that way we know exactly who it is that we need to call. Over time, the serial numbers that identify whether it belongs to Edison or county have come off. So we'll call Edison, and Edison will point at county, and county will point at Edison, and it'll take some time. But if your street light goes out, please give the city a call, and we usually have somebody out there within 24 hours to fix it. And with that, any more questions? We got to get you out there in the daylight. Now we're going to move on to your hands-on exercise, and I'm going to explain that one very quickly here. You're going to go out in 2 vans with the 2 community preservation officers will be driving the van. You're going to go to 2 completely different neighborhoods. In that neighborhood, can I see someone? No, you're actually that one. Right? This one here. What you're going to do is you're going to go out there with your Citizens Academy little worksheet here, and you're going to look at the street sweeping. What we want to do is we want to show you, we want you to walk in our shoes for a day, or in this case for about 20 minutes, just to see what it is that we're trying to do and where just the small things will improve a neighborhood. So you're going to go out there and you're going to see if the street sweeping's been done, and identify that by making sure that the debris, that the gutters are clear of debris. You're going to look at the trees. Are the public trees in need of pruning? How many trees? Are there any trees that are obstructing the public right-of-way? How many trees? And are there any trees causing lifted sidewalks? This one is dear to my heart. Each one of you got 2 face tags. So pick out 2 properties that you can find on that street and write them on, and then come back. Don't leave them. Come back, and then you can, I've always said when people come, when people come to the office and they say, well, you got to get this. Really, when you look at the code, you can't take more than maybe about 5 or 6 steps before you find a violation of the code. It's just the nature of how the code is. But when you walk through a neighborhood, you're going to see that even when you don't want to, even when you think it's a great neighborhood, you'll find these things, and people if our residents just clean up these few items here, how great a neighborhood it can turn into. So you're going to write it, and then after you write it, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about which ones were the most common violations. You're going to look at the street and see if you think whether it needs to be repaved or slurry sealed, and if there's any signs that need replacing. And with that, thank you very much, and we're going to go right outside to the bench.
We have flashlights.
It lacks weather protection. So if you don't have that paint, if it rains, it could get rotted and it just aggregates to something worse than just putting paint. But if you have any questions, if not, we'll continue walking. That way we still have some daylight, because that can talk forever. So as you walk, I'm not sure if he said to look at the sidewalks as well.
How about this hole right here?
Okay, I'm not, because on my face program form, I don't jot that down.
It's not on the form.
It's not on the form. Did he tell you to jot it down somewhere else?
I wrote it on my thing here.
Okay, for notes, that's fine.
I would say in that case, because it is potential.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
That's
a woman with heels
and
could
it's
trip
usually,
easily,
it's usually an inch. In this case, it's a hole where usually it's a tree that's lifting it. But so that could just easily be patched.
Right. Or like a mom pushing a little baby in a stroller, and like tip or something,
No, but I'll make sure to point that out.
Snack time, girl. My parents
I'd say probably about 3 feet.
Please raise your hands. And then if I could go around the room and just ask you what your thoughts, Commissioner Nimri, what did you think?
Well, we went south at 5334 Sultana, and we made a right and ended up at Alabama and Encinitas. We canvassed 14 properties, and I personally looked at, I found 13 in violation out of 14.
13 properties out of 14 in violation?
Correct. And not only one violation, some are multiple violations. I also noted different kind, like portion of the streets need re-striping. Then some property gets painting. And I also noticed there is the Edison pole wires in the portion that is across on the right of way that could be hazardous on 3 poles in that location, which I will hope to figure out the issue.
Is there anybody else that's seen on that? What was with regards to the streets or signage? What was the most glaring issue that you saw out there?
I see where we're at, it's a timeout and always there's traffic code safety issues on the issue there. The obstruction of the edge way at the intersection.
Right.
I think it's a blind spot right there. So I think when you make right turn, you might not see the on the street.
If I may make a suggestion before we move on here, if everyone would be kind enough to give either Officer Tran or myself, I know Commissioner Nimri, we just talked about, you saw some signs that needed replacing that weren't reflective anymore, that were pretty dilapidated. If you would give me that list, and then what staff will do is in subsequent city manager reports, we will report out on all the things that you saw, so that way you know that it's not falling on deaf ears. We're going to take care of it. We're going to fix it. You've identified it just like staff would have been out there identifying it in this case. We had 12 people out there on one street looking, and right now it's only 3 people for 15,000 housing units throughout the city. So the more eyes, the better. That's what we need. So if you would give us all your list of signs, what's wrong with the street, if you give it to me and Kathy with regards to the trees, lifted sidewalks. If it's okay with Mr. Polito, we'll have a section on that in subsequent city manager reports that reports out on what it is that we're fixing and how long it's taken us to fix it. Anybody else from Team 1 that has any comments?
I'd like to rank the other items on the property themselves. I personally found 10 that have an individually maintained landscape, 10 properties. Second rank was weeds or debris at 8 properties. Visible trash cans, 6 properties. Overgrown vegetation, 6 properties. Household items, 3 properties. And road line and front yard is 1. None in upper vehicles.
I think I need to start a volunteer preservation officer program. I think that's what I need to do. Well, thank you, Commissioner Emery, if you would forward that to me, I'd appreciate it. For Officer Aceves' group, Any thoughts on what it is that you saw out there? I think you wrote down quite a Ms. John.
Well, I think JerryJambazian made a very awesome comment when we were all walking and noticing all these little variances. We all think that Temple City is a really nice community, a very well-groomed community, and we really enjoy living here. And we were surprised at how many violations we all saw in the short time we were out there. It amazed us.
Welcome to my world. No, great comment it is, and especially if you look at the city manager reports when we go out to a phase area. And by the way, I was instructed that I keep saying phase, but phase stands for focus area systematic enforcement. The way we used to do enforcement in the past, it was all reactive. Officers wouldn't go out there unless they were called out there. Now we're going out there systematically, working our way from one end to the other. But if you look at a great source of information is a bi-weekly first and third Fridays, Brian? Yes. First and third Fridays of every month, the city manager reports, and in that city manager report is ostensibly everything that the city is doing and moving forward with. So we report out on our phase areas, and typically in a phase area we'll do about, we had about 170 properties. And of those 70 properties, you're absolutely right, I think in the last one it was 170 properties, about 380 violations, and about 90% of them got a face tag. So unless you actually walk the street and you're looking, it's a lot different. That's why the officers, when they're out there, they literally stand in front and they start from where they're standing and they work their way back. Yes, sir.
If there's 84% compliance, how many of them go to the city prosecutor?
2%.
2%.
As a matter of fact, right now, how many cases do we have with the city prosecutor?
In my area, I have one, Romeo. I have about 10.
Three. So we have 14 total.
Do they pay attorney and court costs?
They just got approved at the last meeting that they have to pay attorney and court costs.
Okay.
It wasn't in our code before.
Thank you.
What would trigger leaving your car? How many violations? Otherwise, you're going to have one in each.
You know, what happens after a while, I think you said, right, in the properties that you were walking, you went from, they ran the gamut, right? You had the mansions and the ones that looked like they needed a match taken to. And sometimes what happens is when you get to that property that just looks that bad, sometimes it's not even, you have to start somewhere. And the phase tag is where we start. But that just begins the conversation. And that allows the resident to say, that allows us to tell the resident, we've given you the opportunity. We started just with this, but we're going to have to come back and address this either through the city prosecutor or through administrative fines. But again, it's 3 officers for 15,000 housing units. So it's going to take some time. Phase will address the entire city. We should be done with the entire city by about January or February of the next year. And then it starts all over again because those that we got last year have already forgotten that they have to water their lawn, right? You have to keep it green. Anyone else, please, comments? Observations? Yes?
I saw a palm tree, pretty tall, and there were a lot of the dead leaves accumulated. You know, palm tree, when they fall down, I step away from it. If it falls on the tree on your head, it's pretty heavy. I'm venturing to say that in every other city manager report, I have one of those cases in there because that's Officer Tran's pet peeve is those palm trees. And we do cite for them. Kathy and Rob refer a lot of those to us because those palm trees are on private property. And you're right, when it starts blowing, they fall on cars and they do damage. And that is identified by our code that people make sure that they maintain those palm fronds. That one happened to be, I believe, on the sidewalk, right next to the sidewalk or something. Probably, I think it's city.
It's a city tree? Please give it to me or give it to Kathy at the end of the day. We'll handle it. I can't speak for Kathy, but
And you know, the other thing, and I know Robert was going to mention, I think you forgot.
Here.
One of the most important parts of phase is, and this is Robert's code is, you do our part, we'll do our, you do your part, we'll do our part.
I hadn't yet, I was gonna get ready to take it. That was my favorite saying too.
And I took it from you, I guess my point is, there are some that we miss, and if we're requiring the property owner to trim their poles, then we need to do the same thing. So if you did notice some out there, and we missed them, then please, by all means, let us know what they are, because we want to do our part as well.
Moving forward through phase, I just want to expand on what Kathy just said. Right after we leave the phase area, because a lot of times what happens is the resident will say, look, I'm willing to clean up my yard, I'm willing to paint my house, I'm willing to put my trash cans away. But hey buddy, hey pal, can you take care of the pothole that's been there for 2 years? We agree. So now moving forward through phase, once we go through a phase area, when we leave that phase area, we're going to either replace and or slurry sewer your street, we're going to restripe it, we're going to put up new signage. And that's a commitment for just leaving the council members that for monies that have been appropriated in this last budget. So we just won't come in, we need to give everyone, right? We need to give everyone a, yes, sir.
Could we write you up for the peeling paint on
It's not visible from visible from the public right away.
I see.
So, any other questions, observations? Just, was there one glaring thing that you saw out there?
Well, I travel Broadway probably every day, and I didn't even notice it, but there was a house where the tree was coming so far over into the sidewalk that none of us could even walk underneath it, practically. We had to go out in the street, which is kind of dangerous at night, you know, to go around it. Couldn't even go under it.
Oh, wow. I would have had been over, because I'm on 4 foot nothing in the quarter. Okay. And Rob was out with you, right? Was it a public tree?
Private tree.
Oh, then, did you write it down?
Yeah, well, took note of it.
Sure. So I hope you get an appreciation for what it is that staff is trying to do and how it is that we're trying to move forward. And sometimes it's rather hard to put our arms around it when we go. So the only way we can do it is block by block, house by house. And yes, sir.
We kind of joked about it, but how much are you willing to have us be your eyes and ears without us being a pest?
You can never be a pest, Aaron. I think at one point we were talking about, a volunteer community preservation officer program, and I don't know why I can't speak for Mr. Leo, but I think.
No, I mean, just being able to call in and say, do you mind taking a look at this?
Oh no, that can happen anytime.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and even people that don't want to be identified, we have we have our community preservation hotline, which is on all the time. It goes right through recording, and I feel about eight calls a week. We have 8 to 9 calls a week.
That's fine.
Some are regulars.
Good. I'm not asking for the black shirt.
You want to mention the fact that we're actually in the process of securing an application that actually allows new smartphones to be able to.
Oh, yes. That'll be good. Okay. Everybody's got an iPhone.
For that too.
It can be an Android.
It can be either an iPhone or Android. In the city that I live in, we have this. I don't know if everybody can see it. It's an app that is GPS. So you hit new issue. A scroll drops down that has pre-populated, whether it's code enforcement, broken street light, pothole, street sign. You click on it, and when you click on it, by the GPS signal, it tells you what address you're in front of within 10 feet. Then it allows you to add a picture. You take a picture.
We have that?
We will
Oh.
very soon. You take the picture of the street sign or whatever have you. You add your the violation or just a pothole. You add your comments and your contact information. It comes to the city, and we start going on it. We contact you once we're done with it. And Brian will probably be leading that up. So with us, I guess with me, Brian's the.
Boy, I've got the car. All I need is the black shirt now.
Any other questions? Comments?
Graffiti falls into this also?
Pardon me?
Graffiti.
Anything. It's whatever the city decides. Brian, you want to explain what? It's whatever the city decides that we would populate as fields.
So we can do everything from if there's like a illegally parked car or blocking your driveway to if there's a tree blocking the sidewalk to, I don't know, maybe we even looking at a working dog that's looking at. I don't know. We're researching that right now, but we hope to have that done by the end of the summer. So, because I mean, I've walked and you're right. You've seen more things. I've done with bike tire, but GPS.
And you're right, Jeremy. If you walk, if anybody walks the streets, or Mr. Chavez, as you're walking right every morning, I'm probably going to get about 20 of these.
No, I'm talking the burglars. What I'm doing, I'm catching the burglars.
And in the city that I live in, it's everything from potholes to signs to street lights. It just runs the gamut, and it'll come to the staff that says that it's appropriate to, and it'll get filtered down. And if you leave your contact information, we'll call you back and let you know that we're working on it and give you an estimated time of completion, which would be a great thing to do. All right. Yeah. Questions, concerns, anything?
In the meantime, you can take a picture
and just email it to us. Yeah, and you can email it to codenforcement.org or the city's email, which is
info@TempleCity.us. So
I had two questions for Kathy, but didn't get a chance to answer. How much does a tree as tall as the flag cost nowadays? I know they're expensive. And the second question is, how important is Tree City USA to Temple City?
First question, it depends on the type of tree, but generally, Rob, we normally plant 15-gallon.
Yeah, for West Coast to plant a tree, I think it's around $90 to plant a 15-gallon container about the size of this flag. And then what they would do is stake it and then water it for 90 days. And then, but normally if you buy a tree like that, it's about $35 to $55 depending on what kind of tree it is.
Yes, thank you.
Real quickly, two things I forgot to mention. We are a Tree City USA. It is a designation that there are certain requirements that have to be met. Temple City has been a Tree City USA for 9 years now. And you have to have a tree ordinance, which we have those numbers. We're going to work on that. You have to, the city has to contribute or have a specific dollar amount that is spent on their trees based on our population, which we exceed. You have to have an Arbor Day event, which we do, and if you've never been to our Arbor Day, we'll encourage you to come. You get rides in the bucket lift. Java's been up on the lift. Jerry's been, Jerry's been taking pictures of people up on the lift. But, great event. We plant a tree always at the park, and we have all the kids there. And then there's some other requirements, so we're very proud of that designation. It will assist us, hopefully, in securing grants. The other thing I wanted to mention, speaking of grants, I mentioned earlier that we lost about 500 trees, or will lose as a result of the windstorm. We have submitted an application. Supervisor Antonovich is making funds available for the cities in the 5th District that suffered severe wind losses. And so we have submitted an application. Hopefully we'll be getting some funding to help us replant about 300 trees in the city within the next year or so. In a normal year, we would take out anywhere from probably 30 to 40 trees and try and put back about 30 of those trees. So to try and plant 300 in a year or two is going to be interesting. And we're going to be working with the Conservation Corps as well as West Coast Arborists and our staff. Was that the only question, Jerry?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Question? Yes.
What kind of tree? I mean, what factors do you decide the type of tree that you choose?
It goes back to our tree inventory list that we have that designate what tree goes on what street. This has been a little bit updated, but it basically we refer back to this. We will let the property owner know when we're going to plant it, what tree we're planning on putting there. And if there's a big issue or concern, then we can work with that. But pretty much we follow that list. Before we stop, there's a couple things. Your next meeting in 2 weeks, July 5th, is going to be back up at the community room, and it will be a planning session, community development director. So don't forget that. Brian wants to remind you your first assignment. Don't forget your very first meeting. You had an assignment to take 5 pictures, Brian?
Yeah.
10.
So 10 pictures, 5 pictures you like at Temple City and 5 pictures you don't.
You could have taken it on camera today. You could have gotten your assignment.
I know. And then the band and my purse.
So don't forget that. A couple of things you all got are a new issue of Connect magazine. like about it. If any of you ever remember the old other one we had, we're just trying to find out, get some feedback on the magazine. So fill out your survey, turn it back in tonight, and you are eligible for the 2 free tickets to our Dining Under the Stars event in August. So you turn it in, you're eligible. We'll announce the winners next time.
In 2 weeks, yep.
In 2 weeks. And
I have one special announcement. As about 6:45 this afternoon, I got a notification from Collier Sealy, who's the broker for the Randy Wang project on Las Tunas and Roseview. And the information that we're getting right now is that the lease has been secured with a major national retailer. I can't disclose who it is right now, but you can probably see and find out more information in this next city management report, I'm sorry. So I'm just excited right now because this is kind of a milestone, and this is what we were waiting for. So anyways, I just thought you might want to know and hear it from us first. You may need to get reinforcement with my council members. My phone was starting to die, and I was able to forward some of the pictures over, but they actually started construction already. So keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully, in a year and a half, we'll see that building completed. All right?
Thank you. Just a couple things and wrap it up. This is the city yard. Across the wash here is the county yard. The county maintains, the city contracts with the county to do much of our street work. That yard also services much of the unincorporated county area as well as other cities that contract with the county to do their work. So they're coming out of this yard also. So there's 2 separate yards here. Although we work closely with them, they work for us. And so there's 2 separate operations going on here. The other thing I want to do, I want to thank Kathy, Robert, the drivers, the code enforcement people, the tree people, everybody that was here to help with this. Let's give them a big hand. I want to remind you that eventually we're going to ask for your comments on an evaluation of this Citizens Academy. You're aware this is the first one we're doing. Staff is scrambling and I think doing a good job putting this together. The question always is, how are we doing? Are we meeting the needs of the people? So we're going to want feedback, so start thinking of that. We're not giving you a sheet every time, but do keep that in the back of your mind. And I really want to thank you for participating. I think as you see more and more of this goes on, this is an exciting time in our city. There's neat stuff happening. And when Jose came in as a city manager and the team that he's built around us and the council we have right now and just the participation that we're seeing from people, it's very exciting time. So I thank you for being here, and we'll see you in 2 weeks up at the community. Thank you.